What's up guys, Dare here with Fantasy Football Advice, coming at you with a quick player breakdown fantasy outlook for Keenan Allen of the Los Angeles Chargers. Now Keenan Allen is up there on this list of players that a lot of people have question marks coming into the 2017 season. What do we think of Keenan Allen? Will we be drafting Keenan Allen? Well, listen to this video and find out where we think he stands. Before I jump into it though, just quickly have to shout out, if you're watching this video in July, we have a fundraiser going on throughout this entire month. You can buy yourself a Fantasy Football Advice t-shirt, and we will be working with Wounded Warrior Foundation throughout the entire month, so you'll be definitely putting in for a good cause all month long, and we will be looking at a different charity to donate to for the next month of August. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe. We post videos 5 days a week throughout the off season, so there will be no shortage of content. And if the 5 videos a week isn't enough, check out our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. We have rankings you're able to download from there, and also articles you can view as well. So back to Keenan Allen. So let's break him out. What's his 2017 fantasy outlook for us this year? Well, one thing for sure is that Allen is at the top of the list with injury concern, right beside Sammy Watkins. One thing you may be surprised to hear, but Keenan Allen has actually not even played in half of the games Watkins has since 2015. Yet I think when we're looking back at these players, we kind of bundle them up really close together. Watkins has had some nagging injuries that have kept him out of games. Keenan Allen has just straight up had some season-ending injuries with the lacerated kidney or lacerated spleen, and then he went ahead and had that torn ACL in the first game of last year. I personally drafted Keenan Allen last year, and halfway through that game, I was so pumped. He had like 6 for 63 yards, and then all of a sudden he went down with that injury, and I'm like, is this real life? This is just a nightmare. 1 week in, I was already probably the most sad fantasy football player there was in our whole league. But for his injury concerns and for that fact, technically you are getting a draft day discount on this player based off his current ADP. For instance, he is wide receiver 19 in ESPN and wide receiver 21 in Fantasy Football Calculator. So in all fairness, let's say he's wide receiver 20. So is that a good value for Keenan Allen? Well, you really have to break down his production. So leading up to the 2017 season, Keenan Allen really doesn't have enough to work on. So you really have to start dating it back a little bit further to know how good his potential is. And one thing that we do know is that he is one of those top tier talent rookie receivers who hit that 1,000 yard mark in his rookie year in 2013. Unlike most rookies who have accomplished that task recently, he was only a 3rd round pick. Recently, we've been seeing a lot of 1st rounders, 2nd rounders accomplish that feat. He did it as a 3rd round pick. So his fall to the 3rd round was mostly because of a terrible pro day. It was honestly one of the worst that I had seen, including a 4.71 40 time, which is pretty abysmal if you know anything about the 40 times. I would compare it most to Kelvin Benjamin in training camp last month. But jokes aside, his actual comparisons coming into the draft were that he played like Anquan Boldin and had hands like Larry Fitzgerald. Now, if that's not a compliment to you as a player, I don't know what is. Well, long story short, he fell to the 3rd round and was drafted to the now Los Angeles Chargers. Since being drafted, he's clearly been good. His most comparable player on Player Profiler is Michael Crabtree. I think that fits right in with those comparisons. I mean, realistically, when you watch him play, you have Anquan Boldin, Fitzgerald, and Michael Crabtree, all comparisons. I don't think it's too far of a stretch to say he doesn't have some qualities from each of those players. One thing I would say that he does differently from them, I think he plays much better on the outside than some of those players do. I think those players like to play in tight spaces. I've seen Allen stretch the field a little bit. You wouldn't notice from his 10.5 yards per catch average recently, but I have seen games in the past where he can actually pull this out of his repertoire. So let's talk fantasy points. His rookie season, he had 15.4 fantasy points per game. His sophomore season, he hit a little bit of a slump coming in at 13 points per game. His 3rd year, where I would consider this his true breakout year, which shows his upside, he had 20 points per game. So last year, I wouldn't even count it. He had 6 for 63 yards, but I think when you only have a half a game sample size, we're just going to have to throw that one out. Looking back at 2015, though, it was an 8-game sample size, which isn't that bad, but it showed us his wide receiver 1 upside. Clearly, though, a lot has changed since the 2015 season where he was receiving such a ridiculous amount of targets. Other receivers have emerged, such as Travis Benjamin, Dontrell Inman, and Tyrell Williams. You can't forget about Gates, who is always going to be taking targets, and the 2nd-year tight end, Hunter Henry. While we don't believe that they will take over as the first read from Phillip Rivers, maybe in the red zone they might deliver some types of reads where it goes to the tight end first, maybe running back, but overall the target share, we would assume that Keenan Allen would be the first read in most situations. However, throughout the season, with all these mouths to feed, you would be a fool to think he could continue those massive amount of targets that he was receiving in 2015 into this year. Just to let you know exactly how many targets he would have received in 2015 if spread out through a 16 game sample size, he would have ended the season with 178 targets. That is just absurd. Just for reference, to know exactly how many targets that really is, well, Antonio Brown, who as we know is one of the top flight receivers in the entire league, only received 155 targets last year. So Allen was completely blowing him away with an extra 24 targets on top of that projection. So one player I don't think that we did mention in the list of wide receivers and weapons that Los Angeles has this year is rookie Mike Williams. So what do we think of Mike Williams? We don't think he is going to make a fantasy impact as long as Keenan Allen is healthy and on the field. That's not to say though that he is unrosterable, because clearly Allen has a problem with staying on the field as shown by his 9 games in the past 2 years. If you ask me, I'd say there is a 1 in 3 chance that Allen has a season-ending injury in 2017. 1 in 3. That's pretty large, but if you ask me, that's what I'd tell you. So Mike Williams may not be a bad pick, but part of the reason we're not very high on Williams, obviously the amount of targets that he will get cannot be that high because there are just too many weapons on this offense. Also, they just have a tough passing schedule. This may not impact Phillip Rivers down the stretch since he has so many options to throw to. Depending on the coverage, he should be able to find the open receiver. One thing we know about Rivers is he has been known to find the open receiver. He is a great quarterback. You got to give him that. But one thing it should definitely impact is the consistency of these wide receivers, especially a player like Keenan Allen. Go down the list, you see Broncos, Redskins, Giants, Jaguars, Patriots. Those are just to name a few. And if we know anything, those guys can shut down receivers if they have to. Then you can't forget about the Eagles and the Chiefs defenses. While they're in no way elite, they can really get after the quarterback and give them a hard time. All those things impact receivers' consistency week by week. This type of tough schedule really reminds me of the kind of Dez Bryant effect on me this year. That's kind of the same thing that I feel with Dez Bryant. He's a great player and I see the upside, but his schedule makes it really hard for me to want to draft him. Now, some players are simply matchup proof. Do I believe that about Keenan Allen? Not really. So then when you compile all those facts on Keenan Allen, I just think it's a clear no from us on if we will be drafting him this year. To break it down easier, his upside, if healthy, playing a full 16 games, is at best, in my opinion, as a top end wide receiver 2 or a back-end wide receiver 1. Simply due to a potential decrease in targets, the new target share, and a tough schedule, that would be enough for me to pass up on him. Coming in at wide receiver 20, there is a potential that he returns value based on his ADP. However, I think that is negated when I honestly believe there's a 1 in 3 chance for him to finish the season on IR, and an even higher chance to miss games mid-season. That may impact me and my potential to make it to the playoffs this year. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed. If you have a different opinion on Keenan Allen, please let us know in the comment section down below, and we'd be more than happy to get a discussion going about this player. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.